Hi, I'm Matt Gingold. I'm an audiovisual performer and media artist from Australia. I make a lot of different kinds of work. Sometimes I make experimental documentaries or architectural projections. But here for the ACC Residency, I'm working on a new installation as part of a series that I call my Orchestras. And these works, they focus on the kind of magical, political, and emotional relationship we have to machines. It really spoke to me, this theme of the futures of listening, and kind of especially the aspect that was about Western industrialization and its impact on Asian cities. Well, I think first we have to think about what we mean by futures and what we mean by listening. Arguably, the future is a kind of tool of capitalism and Western imperialism. It's been used to kind of erase history and to also erase the future. It's become about the future is now, or at most tomorrow. And listening has its kind of history in the modern era from the military. It was used to identify where planes were, where bombs were falling, where the infantry was. So listening has become about machine listening. But today, this term machine listening means the way in which machines listen to us. And this is through voice synthesis or voice recognition or music recommendation, but also about surveillance, about wiretaps, about mass kind of surveillance of people's everyday conversations and lives. But there's another kind of machine silencing going on because we're also listening to the machines while they're listening to us. And this kind of relates to the theme of the residency, which is the futures of listening. I'm sort of looking at the futures of machine listening. And machine listening is this term that is about the way in which computers are being taught to listen to different sounds, especially our speech, to recognize speech, to synthesize speech, to create new musical instruments. And instead of kind of using these in the proper way, I'm kind of interested in when they break, when they fall apart or when they're not operating well. And in a way I see these as a sort of a ghost, a kind of absence of function, a kind of absence of utility. So my project here is called the Absent Orchestra. And this idea of absence and presence comes from some cultural theorists, a person called Derrida, who had this theory about the idea that when we record ourselves, when we mediate ourselves, that these are kind of ghosts, that they are already ghosts of us. And so in making this kind of sonic time capsule, in a way I'm making these ghosts of human endeavor or of machine noises and labor. So when NASA sent the Voyager probe out to the far edges of the galaxy, they sent a gold record. And on the gold record it had speeches and music and images meant to inform an alien that maybe found this spaceship about what human life was like. And so my installation is a bit of the kind of opposite. Instead of sending these sounds that are kind of like celebrating humanity, it's sending these sounds that maybe we don't want to hear. These sounds of kind of the immediate apocalypse of the present. At this point in my project, I'm working on the electronics for these Wi-Fi audio samplers that I designed and have just had manufactured, and all the components have just come back. And so I'm in the process of putting them all together and testing them and writing the software. So it's kind of was quite nerve-wracking waiting for everything to come and dealing with customs and a whole bunch of design things, but now that it's back, it's quite exciting. Everything is working, and so it's kind of a mini assembly line. Well, my method is always experiential and experimental. I try to experience as much around me as I can, talking to people, walking around the city, reading histories of Korea, and generally trying to soak up the experience of being here. And the experiments here have been about listening to machines and machine listening. So I've been doing a lot of field recordings of these machines we want to ignore: air conditioners, refrigeration, work sites, these work site sounds of people demolishing buildings or putting up scaffolding. But also I've been exploring these machine listening algorithms. So I've been playing with what's called audio style transfer, where you use one sound to emulate another kind of sound. And importantly, I've also been listening to the data used to train these machines itself. My work is about the experience of machines. And I think I should explain that a little bit for the translation. So in that sentence, the experience of machines, that word "of" in English is ambiguous. Is this the experience of the machine itself, the experience the machine is having? Or is this the experience that we are having of the machine ourselves? And my work is sort of intended to mix that up and somehow make us appreciate the kind of inner life within machines and also our relationship to those machines in a way that's kind of really separate to the current dialogue about machine learning, about artificial intelligence. These machines you're seeing, they're not AI in the sense that is sold to us. They're just machines that I've taken a lot of care to build, and hopefully the audience kind of experience something almost unexplainable, ineffable when they're in the room, experiencing them, having an experience of the machines, and thinking about how those machines are experiencing you. I think this residency has been really important in terms of my kind of future works and my practice, in that for the last few years I've been thinking quite critically about machine listening and machine learning and artificial intelligence kind of outside of my technical interest in those things, and thinking about them in terms of cultural significance and in terms of resource extraction and labor automation. And sort of in my works for 20 years, I've been in one way or another using machine learning, but this work is sort of the first one that's like specifically about that in terms of its political and cultural model. And it's also important in that this work, I've really managed to concentrate a lot on the handmade aspect of the installation, like the detail of it. I've sort of thought a lot about the handmade craft of making machines and what does that mean and how does it feel, and I think that will carry forward and become more prominent in my works in the future.